Hi, welcome to this Creating a Family video on parenting adopted adolescents. I'm Dawn Davenport. I'm the director of Creating a Family, a nonprofit providing resources and support to those touched by adoption and infertility. I'm also the host of the weekly 1-hour radio show, Creating a Family, Talk About Adoption and Infertility. And I'm also a mom of 4 children from the ages of 14 to 24, and I have worked with the high school youth at my church for the past 13 years. And with all that, I'm here to tell you that I am not an expert, absolutely not an expert on parenting adolescents or on being an adolescent. However, I do enjoy this age, and I think that teens get a bad rap in our society, and I think as a result parents often fear the approach of adolescence, and I don't think it necessarily needs to be so. The number one message that I'd like to deliver to you today is I think the most important thing that we can do with our teens is to establish a relationship with them, and that means finding something to do that you both enjoy and then doing it. At the very least, you need to be doing something fun with your teen once a week, but preferably much, much more. I want to refer you to a essay/blog that I wrote. I blog on the subject of parenting teens frequently at creatingafamily.com, as well as on topics of adoption and infertility. But there was one blog that I wrote that I thought would be particularly helpful for you, and it's called The D Word: discipline. And you can find it by going to the Creating a Family /blog, and up in the upper left-hand corner there's a search box, and just type in the D word and it will take you to that page. Scroll down and you can find it that way. The role of adolescence is to individuate and separate, as the psychologists say, and that brings up the issue of control. As parents, it's often hard to know what is ours to control and what is theirs to control. And that's an important distinction that you need to make. Basically, safety is in your responsibility, and most everything else is theirs, and that would include setting a bedtime. That would include, unfortunately or fortunately, their grades. It would include their hair choice and clothing choice. You can help them in these areas, and you can try to persuade them in these areas. But ultimately, decisions on their areas are theirs. And you need to pick your battles, especially with teens. You need to pick your battles very, very carefully. Dr. Foster Cline, another noted psychologist specializing in adoption, talks about the V of control. He talks about the fact that when our children are younger, we set very tight limits on them. But as they age, we need to expand the responsibility and turn more and more over to them. I think so often in today's society it's easy to give our younger children a lot more freedoms. And then when they become teens, parents get worried, they seem out of control, and they try to clamp down. As Dr. Keck said in the interview that we did with him on Creating a Family, which was July 22nd, 2009, he said basically if your child has not heard you say no a lot by the time they're 13, it really is a little too late to begin at that point. I should point out too that when we're talking about ages of children, you need to base the age on their maturation age, not necessarily their chronological age. Some children, especially those who experienced neglect abuse in their earlier years, are not as mature, and you need to be basing your decisions on their maturity. In the book 7 Things Your Teenager Won't Tell You, the authors give 3 simple, not so simple, but 3 rules to guide you in your disciplining of teens, and these are the 3 family rules. Be safe, show respect, and keep in touch. And I really like that. Because if those 3 rules are followed, it really would create family harmony. But now I want to talk a little about how adoption influences adolescence. Dr. Keck, who is a renowned psychotherapist and attachment specialist, points out that non-adopted teens and adopted teens are far more common than different. And this is especially the case if your adopted teen had not experienced a great deal of trauma or neglect or abuse in their early years. But one of the central issues of adolescence is the question, who am I? And adoption does add a layer of complexity to answering this question, and even more so if your teen has been adopted transracially. There are a number of things we've talked about both at the Creating a Family site as well as on many of our shows that you can do with transracially adopted kids. But for the most part, trying to allow them to experience and giving them role models for all types of role models for people in their race is one of the simply best things you can do. Another issue of adoption that overlays itself and is often complicates adolescence is the idea of rejection. This is particularly hard for adoptive parents to hear because for us, we want to think of adoption as acceptance. But for us to have acceptance, for us to have a child to accept, someone had to choose not to accept. And that translates for adolescents oftentimes into the idea of that they were rejected. This can raise its head in an oversensitivity or an increased sensitivity to not making the team, not being chosen for a sorority, not getting into the college of your choice. Any of these things can be even harder for some adopted youth. There isn't a whole lot parents can do other than be patient and to listen and to support without minimizing their feelings. And of course, if your child is really struggling, to get them help with a therapist that specializes in adoption. I'd like to share some resources with you before we go today. One is a book, Parenting Adopted Adolescents by Dr. Gregory Keck. He was on our show, Creating a Family, on July 22nd, 2009. This book is written more for children who experienced early trauma. However, there's a lot of general wisdom in there that I think would be helpful. Another book, which I actually don't have a copy of because I checked it out of the library, is Parenting Teens with Love and Logic by Dr. Foster Cline and Jim Fay. Dr. Cline was a foster parent and as well as a parent, and he was on the Creating a Family show March 12th, 2008. Both of these shows, by the way, you can listen to by going to the radio page of creatingafamily.com, and you can click on the big list for either 2008 for Dr. Cline's interview or 2009 for Dr. Keck's interview. Although I also interviewed Dr. Keck in 2008 as well, but it really wasn't on the adolescent issue. And I really, really like the book Parenting Teens with Love and Logic. Another book you might want to consider is not directed towards adopted kids at all, but is a good book for general adolescent parenting, and it's Get Out of My Life, But First Could You Drive Me and Cheryl to the Mall by Dr. Anthony Wolfe. You can get this just about anywhere. And another book I want to tell you that's getting ready to be published is written for adopted teens, and many of the entries are by adopted teens as well, and it's called Pieces of Me, Who Do I Want to Be, and it's being edited by Bert Ballard. It's being published by EMK Press. The expected publication date is October 2009. Keep your eyes and ears open because we plan on interviewing Bert Ballard on the Creating a Family show, hopefully sometime in 2009. I wanted to end by reading you a piece that I wrote in another essay blog titled That Relationship Thing. Establishing a connection with our kids doesn't guarantee perfect behavior or a trouble-free existence. Hardly. But it's that relationship thing that will sustain us through the hard times, the sulks and moods of middle school, the peer pressure of high school, the fire engine red dyed hair, and those gosh-awful drooping jeans exposing a good foot of boxers. More than anything, I think our kids, and me for that matter, want to feel treasured in all of our imperfect glory. If we don't capture their heart, nothing else matters. Thanks for joining us today.